And thank you for joining the Hudson 7 Drinking Water Council's monthly meeting. Today is Thursday, September the 17th. My name is Rebecca Martin, and I am the Water Quality Program Campaign Manager for Riverkeeper, an acting coordinator, a non-voting member, and co-organizer with Town of Hyde Park Deputy Supervisor Neil Krupnick for tonight's Hudson 7's virtual meeting. Before we begin, we would like to go over a few meeting guidelines and abbreviated procedures. The procedures are available in full on the Hudson 7's meeting page at www.hudson7.org. The Hudson 7's meetings are recorded and streamed live on their YouTube channel page. A link to their page can be found on the meeting page of their website, hudson7.org. The public is advised to subscribe to this channel to receive notifications when meetings begin. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the Hudson 7's website at a later date. If a member of the public would like to participate during the public comment section of our Zoom meetings, either audio or video, pre-registration is required. Written comments may be submitted to be read on record as well. For more detailed information on how to pre-register and submit public comment, please visit the meeting page of the Hudson 7's website, hudson7.org. For those who have pre-registered this evening, once you are logged in, you will be placed in the virtual waiting room. The moderator will let you into the meeting at the appropriate time. You can watch the proceedings of the meeting via the live stream link while you're waiting. When you enter the meeting, you will be muted to give you time to turn off the volume on your YouTube link to prevent feedback. You will be asked to state your name and your municipality and affiliation. Hudson 7 council members, please control your own mute button, and guests as well. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. If a Hudson 7 member wishes to speak, please raise your hand and the chairperson will call on them or call on you. Before you speak, please state your name for any audio listeners. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have an attendance. And I can't see everyone, so I'm going to read what I have here so far. If I miss anyone, you can state your name when I'm finished. Hudson 7 Chairman, the Village of Rhinebeck, Mayor Gary Bassett.
Present.
Hudson 7 Vice Chair, the Town of Poughkeepsie Supervisor J. John Baisley. Not present. Hudson 7 Secretary, the Town of Hyde Park Deputy Supervisor Neil Krupnick.
Present.
Bill Carlos is absent. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Hudson 7 committee members. The City and Town of Poughkeepsie Water Plant Operator and Technical Advisor, Randy Allstat. Town of Esopus Supervisor, Shannon Harris.
Present.
Town of Lloyd Deputy Supervisor, Russell Gilmore.
Present.
Great. The City of Poughkeepsie City Administrator, Mark Nelson.
Good evening, everybody.
All voting members. Have I missed any of the voting members? Okay. Hudson 7 non-voting council members. Hudson 7 technical advisors, Paul Melrose and Emily Svensson.
Hi.
Dan Shapley, Director of the Water Quality Program at Riverkeeper, is running late. We'll be here shortly. Have I missed anyone from the Hudson 7? Okay. On behalf of the Hudson 7, I now turn the floor over to Chairman Gary Bassett.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Hudson 7 September's, what's the date today? September 17th, our meeting. We have a very full agenda, so we are going to take go through the front part of the agenda as quickly as possible because we have we also have a very important presentation this evening. So with that, I'm going to get the meeting started. The first thing is approval of the 8/20/20 minutes. I have a motion to approve.
Make a motion.
I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, moving forward, communications. Europa will not be present this evening, but Randy, I believe it was you, the Dutchess County Fire Training Association in Hyde Park, or is that Dan?
Not me.
So that's Dan, but I don't know, Emily, if you have anything that you'd like to discuss, or we can move it to a later in the we can move the communications a little further down the agenda.
Well, it's just real quickly, because it just came out yesterday. We might want to talk about it at a future meeting, but the Fire Training Center in Hyde Park, which is right adjacent to the Fallkill Creek, it's been known for a while that there was some contamination there from firefighting chemicals, and it's just been added to the state Superfund list because of PFAS contamination that's in the Fallkill Creek. So it might be something for the Hudson 7 to stay on top of and understand better, since the Fallkill does flow into the Hudson fairly close to the Poughkeepsie water intake. I don't know if the contamination makes it that far or what, but this is kind of something new happening that we might want to have on our radar.
Yes, Emily, thank you for bringing that forward, and Dan, when he joins us, thank you too. So this is definitely something, these are, for those who are joining us this evening, these are the kind of activities we like to track and find out what's going on and weigh in where possible. So I would like to suggest that we do add this on as a recurring item until we understand it best.
Yeah, I think Dan had some good suggestions about getting on the list to receive updates from DEC as this goes forward. And I think that's something the council probably wants to do.
Yes, all right. Maybe when Dan, we can get caught up. Okay, public comment.
I'm sorry, Gary.
Jessica, I see you're here. I saw Jessica somewhere. There you are.
Yep.
Would you like to take the floor?
Yes, thank you. Rebecca, were you going to say something really quick? Or? Nope. Okay. It's nice to see you all. Thank you for having me today. I'm just going to take a couple minutes here because I just wanted to let you all know that, oh, and I should introduce myself. Sorry, my name is Jess Coonan. I'm the Hudson Estuary Specialist with New York Sea Grant, and I'm located in Kingston. And I wanted to let you know that I have 2 resilience projects underway that focus on flooding and erosion issues along the Hudson shoreline and the tidal trips, but that also relate to water quality, since a lot of the recommended actions we have, or we recommend, have co-benefits through floodplain management. And I also think it'd be really cool if we could incorporate some of the issues that are important to you, like the PFAS, and get that out to a wider audience. So the first project is FEMA funded, and it's developing an online educational resource that's meant for a broad audience, mostly like shoreline residents, local officials, that looks at flooding and erosion risk from the watershed scale perspective, including climate change, what are some of the things you can do about it, that type of thing. And I know there's a lot already out there between Lula trainings and estuary program trainings, but this is really meant to be kind of a quick reference. So for example, I know Red Hook did a CRB, community resilience building exercise, earlier this year. So the thing that we're developing is kind of like, okay, everyone that's about to go to that meeting can look at this resource and kind of get up to speed on what we'll be talking about that day. So in order to get to those key messages, I'd be really interested at some point in the future in hearing from you all about the decisions you're faced with related to flooding and erosion along the shoreline, because the goal is really to raise awareness in a way that's going to resonate with people. The second project is funded by NOAA through the National Sea Grant Office, and it's to bring a flood reporting system to the Hudson so that people can take pictures of high tide flooding and impacts from storms and upload it to a public-facing database. The idea being that high tide flooding storms, they're going to be happening more frequently, and the goal is to really start documenting these impacts to raise awareness and then use these images to like inform planning and flood mitigation activities. So I would just in general be curious to know about any like parks or roads or properties that regularly flood. And I know that today this meeting certainly isn't the place to have these conversations, but because this group is so organized, I just wanted to give a heads up that you may be hearing from me about these projects in the future. I'd love for you to participate. And I just wanted to open it up for a moment to see if you have any questions for me today or any recommendations or insights. And that's all I have.
Jessica, this is Gary. I do have a question. I have a question.
Mhm.
And Jessica, the first question I have is we're in the village of Rhinebeck, we're doing a study with Marist on the impacts of flooding along the Landsman Kill. Would that be something that would be of interest to you to get the report from that study?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I will make a note to send that to you, okay?
Great, thank you. And I'll just pop my contact information in the chat box, just so you have it.
You know what, Jessica, I'll connect you and Gary after the meeting with a
Okay.
reminder, and you two can be in touch.
Awesome, thank you.
Rebecca. You're also looking for anybody who wants to participate, right? Am I
Yep.
understanding?
Yeah, if there's anyone in your communities that you know are like, you know, facing these issues, thinking about them a lot, that would just be good to, you know, good sources of information and really be able to tell the story from your community's perspective. I'd love to talk to them.
Any other questions for Jessica? Hearing none, thank you, Jessica.
Thank
Very
you.
much. Let's move on to reports, action items, old business, please. So the first thing on the agenda, first thing under that title was the Hudson River Express presentation. Rebecca, I think you were going to give an update for us, or a brief update.
Yeah,
that
real
correct?
quick, based on Shannon's questions last month, we identified a riverkeeper, the best contact for an initial Q&A session. And it's Jennifer White, who's the Communications and Relations Director. And she and I are in the process of working on having her in to a Hudson 7 meeting in October and November to discuss Chippy questions that have been raised. So I hope to have news on that in the next week or so.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next, I think, Paul, you were going to give us an update, correct? Paul, you're muted.
I think Paul was organizing a meeting outside of the regular Hudson 7 meetings with members of the council to review his presentation.
Yes,
He's unmuted now.
I'm
Okay.
making arrangements for a meeting. I'm waiting for Bill to respond. Randy and Dan have responded. So it should happen in the next week or so for them to review it, and I will get the presentation to them a couple of days before.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, Emily, any quick updates on the municipal code? You sent out a note today in terms of what you're working, but you want to give a brief update to the committee?
Sure, just chipping away at it. I had previously done Town of Esopus, Town of Rhinebeck, and now I've done Town of Poughkeepsie, and I'll keep chipping away at it.
Perfect. Okay, and Dan, are you with us? I think I saw you, Dan.
He's
There you
here.
are. So Dan,
I'm here.
how about an update on the drinking water source program?
No update,
No updates, nothing from
no
the
new
state?
information.
No. And that's kind of disappointing that they're not going to be moving forward with that. at any speed.
Well, I don't know that it's not moving forward, but, you know, if you could, yeah, I don't know what to advise. I mean, you could write a letter to DEC and Department of Health and ask, you know, as a community that's applied, I guess this maybe ASOPIS on behalf of the Hudson 7. Beyond that, we're just remain in this waiting game where they are communicating that the program is still alive. It's still going to happen. I shouldn't say there's no update. I'm sorry. I did confirm they've actually hired the consultants. So Barton and LaJudas and Chazen companies have been identified as having the contracts to implement this program. They still have not announced the communities that will be benefited by those contractors to guide through the program. So we still don't know if the Hudson 7 is chosen, but that is a step. It is something that, you know, tells us that it's, you know, it is real. It's going to, you know, it did take a step forward in the last month.
All right,
I
well,
can put in an inquiry. Since we were the lead applicant, I can follow up with that.
thank you, Shannon.
Doesn't hurt. Shows that everyone's eager and interested.
Yep. I need to put on my to-dos. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks, Dan. All right, so I kind of added a placeholder on the agenda. Europa's not here, but I saw Brad Barkley join us. Brad, are you still there? And do you have any updates from the county?
Gary, do you mind or Brad, just for everyone who's new here, maybe clarify Brad's role for the Hudson 7?
Well, Brad, are you there? No, I don't know. All right, so yes, just a quick update. So both Brad from Dutchess County and Europa from Europa McGovern on the Alter side, as the Hudson 7 continues its mission to protecting the Hudson River watershed.
Hello?
Oh, you're there.
I'm sorry, Gary. Gary, I was still muted.
Oh, no problem. Brad,
Gary?
would you like to introduce yourself and what, you know, the role that you're going to play for the Hudson 7?
Absolutely. This is Brad Barkley. I work with county planning. I've been involved with Gary through our Dutchess County Climate Smart Communities Task Force for a while now. I'm considered the environmental planner for the county planning department. I was assigned to work with Hudson 7, and I know before Europa left, we did set up a meeting for October 7th to meet with Dan and Europa, Ulster County reps, and go over exactly what we thought we could provide and who had what and could do what. In the meantime, while we were waiting for something from the state, I think we'd still prefer to use the state contract if possible. But there are some things that we think we can do on our own. And so we have a meeting on the 7th to talk about that.
Thank you, Brad.
No problem.
Next update is, as for everybody else too, we've always thought that working directly with our water operators was a very important function of this organization. So we're continuously trying to reach out to the water operators for the 5 water plants that are part of the Hudson 7. One of the things that was on my to-do list, which I have not completed yet, was convening and writing a letter and sending it to them, inviting them to a meeting and discussion. So that's still a to-do for me. Randy's here. Randy is working on an equipment list. Randy, an update?
I haven't got any feedback from any of the other operators, so I've provided my list.
Well, it's important to know that we now have, I think Rebecca made it a live living document on our website. Is that correct, Rebecca? So that it's available for people to review and see what equipment that I know you've put in so far that can be shared.
That looks
Yeah.
nice.
It's not on the website, but it is in your Google Drive, and it's just a living document. that the other municipalities can add to with their contact info. It's very simple.
Great.
We can improve it anyway as it develops.
Can you, I'm sorry to ask, but can you resend the link? I just want to maybe nudge our water treatment plant operator. We've been I think we're swamped in the 2 grants that we have. So they may have missed this one, but I'll nudge.
No problem. Send it out tonight.
Thank you.
Rebecca, I could take that nudge as well, please.
Okay.
Send our plan and remind them again.
Okay.
I would like to have them work closer with Randy as much as possible. But we do have a kind of a success story to talk about, where this actually came to use with Russ in the town of Lloyd and Randy. Does anybody want to give an update on that?
Sure, we were contacted from the town of Lloyd concerning problems with their centrifuges. We used to have Alpha Laval centrifuges, and they have those also. So I sent my head maintenance mechanic and my maintenance supervisor up to see what they got going on, see how we could help, where we have parts, and they came in. I guess they provided some contacts, which was helpful.
So first of hopefully many to come.
Yeah, we were really glad that we got the call, and we were glad to participate with get in there and see if we can help. So really encourage it wherever we can help, we'd be glad to do it.
Thank you, Randy, and thanks, Russ.
Hey, Gary, can I interject? With Dan here, can we go back really quickly to the Dutchess County Fire Training Center item,
Yes.
communications? For Dan, just to have a quick question, Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I was in touch with the DEC project manager today on that, and and suggested that the Hudson 7 and Poughkeepsie Joint Water Board be added to their contact list. And he was very, thankful for the suggestion and wanted to act on it. He just wanted to know who should be the points of contact for each. So if you can just follow, we can decide here, follow up to make sure we give them the right names. They can make sure that you are kept in the loop on that site going forward.
So we can take that as an action item, I think, to add names, correct? Thanks, Dan. Okay. Next item on the agenda was funding. I don't believe we have any updates. Does anybody have any updates for funding? I'm not aware.
Only that the asteroid program, where we had hoped to put in the application when the next round opens. The word I got from the last Management Advisory Committee meeting is that they're still expecting to have a grant program even this year. At this point, that's their expectation, but it is still on pause. It has been, supposed to be released in May or June, and it hasn't been. So there's still some hope that there might be a program. I don't know how much, what chances I would give that, but at least it still seems to be a chance.
Okay. Is anybody aware of any other funding?
Sounds like we can perhaps get that grant application ready. Is that right, Dan? Just in case?
We'll have time once the grant is announced, if it is announced. So I don't know that it would make sense to spend too much time ahead of that.
Okay. Okay, next, we made changes to our bylaws back on August 20. So for the voting members that are here, I would like to make a motion to approve the changes that we approved on 8/20. We've now gone through the 30-day window. So I make a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Neil, second. All in favor? Voting members,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Thank you. They're passed. All right, new business. No new business, but now for what I think was probably one of the greatest things we can do is get an update on the Central Hudson Manufacturing Gas Plant. in Poughkeepsie. And we have two people who are going to talk. We have Doug McNeil is here. He's Senior Engineer, Division of the Environmental Remediation for DEC. And we also have Mark McLean, who will be talking. What I'd like to do is kind of have everybody go through a roll call, if we could, and announce them and announce who they are before we get started with the presentation. So Doug, can you lead off?
Yeah, this is Doug McNeil. I'm the senior project manager for the DEC on the site.
I'm also with New York State DEC, and I supervise Doug.
I'm sorry, who was that? I didn't catch that name.
Daniel Eaton.
Oh, hi, Daniel. I didn't see you up there. Very good. All right. John, is John Mazagon here? John, are you there?
Yes, it's John Sturgeon with Central Hudson. I'm in our public relations department.
And next I have on my list, Joe Jenkins.
Yes, good evening. I'm here and I work for Central Hudson in our public relations and corporate communications with John.
Janet Brown, are you here? How about Min Soo Kim?
Okay, hi. I'm with the New York State Department of Health, Bureau of Water Supply Protection. I'm particularly serving as a member in the operations section.
Thank you. James Upright. James Steed.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I was muted, sorry. James Upright, I'm a senior public health engineer with Dutchess County Department of Health. We oversee the plants along Dutchess County.
Thank you. James Steed, are you here?
Yeah, hi, Jim Teed here. I'm also a senior public health engineer with Dutchess County. And Jim Upright already explained what we do.
Thank you, James. Grant, how about introducing yourself?
Hi, this is Grant Jang. I'm with the Metropolitan Area Regional Office of the New York State Department of Health, where I work on source water issues.
Thanks, Grant. Maureen.
Hi, I'm Maureen Schuck with New York State Department of Health. I'm the region chief for the Bureau of Environmental Exposure Investigation. We work cooperatively with DEC on the environmental investigations, such as this one here in Poughkeepsie.
Thank you, Maureen. And Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kulo, and I work with Maureen. She's my supervisor. I'm the project manager for the Department of Health on this site.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone?
Barry, this is Dan Eaton again. Janet Brown just sent me a note. She is on the line. She's on the phone. She can hear us, but somehow she's unmuted and we can't hear her. So she is present, just not audible.
All right, thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Okay, so Doug, I think you want to lead off with this, correct?
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick intro here. First, I want to thank you for inviting us to give you guys a little update on this. It's a pretty important project for us that we're looking to finally get completed here. I'm going to be providing an update on the regulatory status. Mark McLean from Central Hudson will be providing an update on the actual the pilot test project we have for the upcoming hydraulic dredging. So we've been working with Central Hudson, the Poughkeepsie Joint Water Board, and the water treatment plant, along with county and state health, to make sure that the pilot test work plan that we're discussing tonight is going to have all the features and controls that we feel are necessary to ensure the water supply is protected during the work. And at this point, we are ready to approve this pilot test work plan to get this pilot test started. As most of you know, the intent of the pilot test is to gather data, information to inform the design of what we anticipate will hopefully be the full-scale hydraulic dredging program to remove what remains of the contamination at the bottom of the river. And this pilot test is the first step in that process. It's so we can gather data on this dredging technique, which is somewhat unique, particularly for this site, in this location, in this water body, and to give us good data on the water and material handling needs, as well as real-time data on the safety and control features for the full-scale design. The full scale at this point, we just want you to know that our approval only covers the pilot test work plan. The full scale program is going to get its own approval process once we get to that point. So that's really all I have. Mark's got a little more detail into what the actual plan consists of. So I would let Mark take it from here.
Anything? First, Mark, before you get started, can everybody see the document? And I want to make sure we have the right document up.
So this is the figure that I sent along. Mark, I believe, has a presentation of his own.
Same diagram.
Yeah. It's the same figure. It just lays out the work area, the planned work areas, and where it is in relation to the actual upland portion of the site, as well as the water treatment plant.
And it looks like we can see that now.
Yep. Yeah, the presentation is up now.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and hand it over to Mark.
Thanks, Doug.
So, myself, I didn't get a chance to unmute while I was chiming in before. I'm Mark McLean, the Senior Project Manager for the remediation project there at the North Water Street MGP, former MGP facility. The focus, as Doug indicated before, for this season is basically to demonstrate a means and methods that we are moving towards what we were initially contemplating to remove the impacted material at the bottom of the river, which for last season, which would have been a mechanical dredge method. So that would have been using an environmental clam bucket, more or less, some controls around that. We moved away from that, quite honestly, and moved to a hydraulic dredge, or at least to demonstrate that this might be a bit more controllable, and certainly, from the protective measures that we're trying to, monitor, in relation to your water intakes, that this might be the right means and methods to get at the impacted material at the bottom of the river. The focus of this presentation, quite honestly, is to really focus on the environmental controls and monitoring that we will have in place for this demonstration. And maybe we can advance to that next slide, please. So those controls, for this demonstration will include a perimeter sheen control system. For people that were maybe seeing some activity last year, I mean, it's very similar in that this is a double row, 18-inch oil boom kind of configuration. Any work activities are no closer than 100 feet from the outer bounds of that perimeter, so it's a very expansive perimeter. There is oil absorbance in between each of those. Again, this is primarily for sheen control. That being said, the in-river monitoring, and we'll look at that same diagram you got a glance at before, because that really lays out quite a few of the things, including the monitoring systems that we will put in place. These will include a number of monitoring buoys that will monitor for both turbidity and for PAHs. Both are at 3 different levels, actually. So we'll be monitoring the surface, mid and lower water levels of the water column itself within the river. In-river water quality sampling, and we'll talk about when that's going to commence. We will be collecting in-river and even at 3 of the intakes, beginning towards the end of September, early October timeframe. But what, similar to last year, we will initiate some pre-work sampling, and then we will have an ongoing sampling program, while the work is being performed. Things that will be put in place in addition to that will be doing some very localized real-time monitoring, especially for turbidity and PAHs, close to the hydraulic dredge activities themselves. Again, we want to be sure, close to the work activity as well as, at the extremes of our perimeter, and to get a better understanding, if there is a release, what that might look like, sooner than later, so that we can see what's going on with respect to the work that's going on, and that we can assess it. So again, it's making sure that we have some real-time information to make sure, any of the work activities that we are doing will not negatively impact the water intakes that we are also monitoring. That'll include the municipal water. I just spoke about that. We will have a visual observer on the walkway over the Hudson. That's the best observation point that we were using last season. So we will have that this season as well. That individual, that's their sole task, is to provide visual observation continuously with a marine radio. So they have direct contact with folks that are actually operating the equipment, the sheen control boats, and to the extent that we have a radio, I monitor that same radio. One of the things that we are considering, and I'll discuss this certainly with Randy, is that we also place marine radio at the water treatment facility itself. I mean, as many forms of communication that we can put into play, as quickly as we can, I think would be a big benefit. So that's a part of our communications and contingency for this season. One of the things that we'll also have in place are 4 patrol boats, 2 inside that perimeter system, and then 2 outside. So at any point in time, depending on the tide cycle, we will position those boats such that they are in a position, if we have sheens that need to be controlled both inside and outside that perimeter, they can get there quickly to take care of that. Last but not least, something that we have equipped the Poughkeepsie Water Treatment Facility with, and I know that is installed and working at this point. There is a remote monitoring TV camera that's put at the wet well. So that's the first entry, this visual entry at one of the banks of the Hudson River. So they have real-time monitoring visually. There's also what we call a slip sleuth, which is a sheen detection system. That's also installed and alarmed at their control room. Maybe you can kind of correct me if I'm describing this incorrectly. And I know the water treatment facility will also be installing a new GCMS laboratory instrument, which should be up and ready to go before we commence work. Notwithstanding that, I would let you know that we also do, and we will restage a mini GC instrument we call a frog. Randy's very familiar with this, and we appreciate the space that the water treatment facility allowed us last year. We'll be looking for the same. Basically, I mean, that's any samples that we collect that we need more rapid kind of results from, that instrument will tell us, and it's really detecting PAHs in the water. So we will know that that's probably the quickest outside of visual, that we'll have some level of understanding that there is a presence or absence, if you will. I mean, at that juncture. That doesn't take away from the full bore lab analysis that will also be performed, but in order to get faster results so that we can make, or in this case, a facility could make operational changes such that the rest of the, if there's any impact, that doesn't go through the whole facility and risk any potential exposure to the effluent side of the treatment rooms. Next slide. So here's that same depiction that you saw previously. And there is a whole bunch of information. Unfortunately, in this remote age, I don't have but we can certainly walk through. This shows all the locations of the monitoring buoys that I talked about before. So those are transmitting data collected continuously. So those are telemetry based from all of those buoy locations. And again, they're monitoring for both turbidity and pHs. This also shows where we are taking in-river and intake samples. So you'll see the Poughkeepsie Water Treatment Facility, the town of Lloyd's river intake. What you don't see on this slide, we also collect samples at the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Facility in Hyde Park. So those are the three water intake locations that we collect samples related to this project. They're part of our in-river and facility direct monitoring. The other thing that you might get a glance at, and we'll show you a little bit closer, there's three yellow, I guess, boxes that are within basically the perimeter boom area. That's that blue, that light blue. Inside there, there's three locations. Those three yellow boxes basically indicate where we're going to be doing demo dredging, if you will. The first location is essentially in a clean area. So we will begin the dredge work basically to demonstrate the technology and we'll go into some of the features of this technology that we're going to prove out, monitor the same way. I mean, essentially we're going to start out in a clean area. We'll probably remove, I think, about 150 or 200 yards of material, so not a lot of material to begin with. We'll assess the results of that demonstration, and at that juncture, if all feel comfortable, and when I say all, that's the DEC, the DOH, the county DOH, the water treatment facility, that we feel comfortable in advancing to an area, and that's the yellow box number 2. That's the second location. I would share with you that that is a known impacted area. That would be an area, if this proves successful, that we would be actively removing a wider area in that particular area and in some of the other areas that are kind of outlined in a light green. So area 2, we'll spend a little bit more time there. And the reason I say a little bit more time, we want to demonstrate this is a impacted area, but not to the extent that one of the other, a third location, the extent of impact is greater there. The second location, it's more, there's lesser impact that we know of based on borings that we've done there. So the goal here is, again, to continue to demonstrate the protective nature of the removal system that we're using. And at the same time, we will also go to the deepest depth, if you will, even if that's beyond where we have known contamination, because we know there's other areas where we're going to have to, again, based on our borings, go deeper. So the deepest dredge area, so we understand what we're talking about, is about 14 feet below the bottom surface of the river. That would be someplace in like location number 3. Location number 3 is a more highly impacted area. We're not going to spend very much time there. I can share with you that. That's probably going to be a day. Depending on the outcome of number 2, we would then advance to number 3. And again, to get an idea of what that's all about from both a again, control, monitoring, potential impact perspective. Also, how that material acts within our dewatering systems, because we're actually going to be testing out 2 different dewatering systems. One of the things related to hydraulic dredging is that we move a lot of water, exponentially amount greater than the material that we're actually removing. So that being said, watering is a big part of hydraulic dredging. 2 of the technologies that we will be demonstrating to see which one provides the best watering capabilities if we were to scale this up full scale. PO tubes, which are basically bags that are that allow water basically to migrate out, keep sediment inside so the bags dewater themselves. That decant water is then sent to a water treatment facility on shore. That's an onshore facility that we have in place now, and it was in place for last year. So it would go there for water treatment prior to discharge. The other technology is what they call a filter press. Essentially takes that material and, just as the name implies, presses the water out of that sediment. That water is then collected and then treated through that same water treatment system. The water treatment system is a SPDES permitted, system itself. All discharges, have to meet those SPDES discharge parameters. No different than last year, same parameters, and that's what we would be meeting in this case as well. Okay, then next slide. All right, this is the water quality monitoring I spoke about already. Again, lots of frequency involved here. The table's a little bit busy, but in essence, I just shared with you the things that we will be sampling for, monitoring for, and the frequency. This table does not show the expanded 2 locations, and that's the town of Lloyd and the Hyde Park location. Those 2 were added last year. There's actually 3 water intake facilities that we monitor as a part of this program. All right, next slide, please. This gives you a better idea from an operational plan view. The type of equipment, much like last year, this is going to be water or marine supported. So big equipment placed on barge. Many barges, more than last year, will be within this perimeter system, albeit the pilot dredge locations are outlined here, just to give you a perspective. So it's going to be, that perimeter system itself is going to be filled full of primarily support equipment for the hydraulic dredge operation itself. Logistically, we're working through that, but I would tell you it's going to be busier from an equipment perspective than even last year. So one of the things that we're also going to learn from this demonstration is just that, from water treatment, water handling, material handling, all of those things operationally will also be assessed. So if there's anything else here, but, real quickly, these are the components of hydraulic dredge, or the working components of that system. That includes a dredging boom, or what we refer to as a long stick. That's directly to your right. That piece of what you see there is being custom fabricated for this project. Because of the depths, and you can see, that very large boom that's going to be attached essentially to an excavator, a large excavator that's going to be on a barge. So that piece of equipment was fabricated. That picture was taken on September 4th. All these items are going to be mobilized basically and fabricated or put together actually north of the site up in Queens, and then will be brought down on barge to the site. So that's going to be a big part of the mobilization. So there'll be quite a flotilla of equipment starting to show up, and I'll go over the schedule a little bit. The working end of the business is the pump, which is on the bottom left. Quite a large pump for this piece of equipment. In its full operation, it would have the capability of pumping upwards of 1,700 gallons a minute of water and sediment. Not that we're operating at that level, but it has the capability of doing so. So again, we will start small. So we will test the operation of the dredge pump itself. So it's going to be far less than 1,700 gallons, but it has the capability. And certainly it's constricted, I would share with you, by the water treatment system. The other thing that's the big controlling factor for a hydraulic dredge is its ability to treat water, to handle and treat water. So kind of bearing that in mind, although this could pump up to 1,700 gallons a minute, our water treatment facility that's there right now, 250 gallons a minute. So you can see even conceptually, those numbers don't work, and we know that. So that will limit the amount of time, quite honestly, that this dredge operation can even operate on a pilot scale. In the middle, those are the dredge heads. The left is a typical, vertical design dredge head with that pump, as you see to the left. The other is a horizontal auger type dredge. Both of those are going to be demonstrated on this project. The thing that'll be really unique is the focus to the right. That's the vertical dredge head with a customized shroud. And the idea behind the shroud, I mean, as you can think about it, I mean, as this is stirring up some material, vacuuming it up, I mean, there is some material that we want to keep within that space. So the shroud itself is another control mechanism close to the dredge head. So that's the idea behind the, in this case, it's conceptual, but that's going to be fabricated for this project. Again, testing out a few different things, and certainly the focus being control and protection. Next slide, please. So here's our timeline. We anticipate getting the perimeter boom and monitoring all that equipment early to mid-October, well ahead of when we'll actually be doing any dredging. We'll perform the pre-work activity water quality sampling. That's going to be towards the end of September, early October timeframe. So that's a little bit of a heads up. We will have our environmental consultant, just like last year, with the town of Lloyd and the Hyde Park folks and water treatment. They're going to be reaching out to you, all of your operators, like we did last year, at least two days to a week in advance. So a lot of the timing I would share with you is around the tide cycle. So the sampling is predicated because they do both a low and a high tide sampling of that. So I thought that went fairly well last year. They made some great contacts. I certainly appreciate it. We're going to reintroduce all of the same players to your operators, and we'll be reaching out to them shortly. We anticipate if everything gets delivered as we currently expect it, to commence the pilot test work mid to late October. So a lot of equipment, a lot of things to get in place prior to being able, quite honestly, to turn that dredge on for the very first time. And again, that would be in location number 1. The mid to late October timeframe. So if that's successful, when we get through all 3 of those locations, we would anticipate completing the pilot test work mid to late December. So right now, it's getting a lot of stuff set up. It's relatively short duration, and really not a lot of material is going to be removed. From a impacted sediment material perspective, only about 1,500 yards. I think the last one was questions.
Yes, thank you, Mark. We have a few minutes left. Just a couple minutes left. That is, any questions for Mark? Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Bassett, and thanks, Mark, and thanks to everybody for your presentation. So just a couple of quick questions. Mark, I know your communications team is here. Any heads up on when or if, I assume when, there'll be some press releases on the timing of the pilot? And, I was particularly noted your comment that there's going to be more activity, more vessels and so forth than the public has seen last year when we went through this. And so just want to get a feel for what your timeline is from a communication standpoint.
This is John Sturgeon with Central Hudson. We are on it. We're going to be sending out a release very shortly, and also we'll be reaching out directly to stakeholders. That includes this group, members of the community directly on the Poughkeepsie shoreline, and our elected officials, notify them of the project and what's to take place. We'll be updating our website once we have final approval for this project through DEC, and we'll provide that link to all the stakeholders. But yes, there'll be a pretty thorough communications plan for this project.
Great, thanks so much, John. And the second question, and I hate to ask this one, but I asked it in my role last year as chair of the Joint Water Board, and just from my notes and record, do you, Central Hudson, have a rough number in terms of the total budget for the project now? And any comment on the increase between models now that you've moved to the hydraulic model? I'm curious as to how many more dollars Central Hudson's got in this.
Well, I mean, I could share with you the pilot demo, and again, it's not something that you can kind of extrapolate into a full scale. For this demonstration, it's almost $11 million. That's the magnitude of demoing this means and method. To the extent, again, and that's why we want to be, success or otherwise, from that point forward, then even the folks that engineering firm and the folks that are actually going to be doing the dredging, it's not a, you've been chatted with, I mentioned before, the water treatment facilities, not the one you would use, for example. We're trying to utilize the one that was there last year, and then things will be sized accordingly. So they're going to learn a lot as well from this demonstration. Yeah, there's so much money well spent. I believe to find out a lot of things with respect to keeping the goal of removing impacted material and also providing a high level of monitoring.
Great, thank you. That's all I had, Mayor. Thanks.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Russ.
For Mark, you were showing us the different monitoring procedures in your first bring up on the screen. It appeared to me that most of the monitoring was surface monitoring outside of the actual dredge area. Is there anything below the surface that's going to be monitoring?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I touched upon before, those monitoring buoys that you saw out there, I mean, those monitoring buoys actually monitor at 3 different surface, middle, and towards the bottom.
Oh, okay, good.
Looking at the water column, I mean, one of the things, again, that was of interest, as we were working through the process last year, is making sure that, things that you can see are one thing, to the extent that there are things that we can't see, we want to be aware of those as well.
Good.
That we established that line of buoys, basically, with that. So, I mean, if there's anything within that water column, we're going to see it from a turbidity PAH perspective. PAHs, I should say, are going to be monitored middle and bottom.
Good.
We'll see. So,
all right, good. Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul, you're muted.
I saw his hand. There we go. Oh, muted again.
You're still muted, Paul. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, Mark, couple of questions. First of all, do you have a discharge permit, and can we get a copy of that discharge permit for the treated water? Number 2 is, a lot of times it's very hard to contain all the water from a geotube. And I was just wondering how you were going to contain that. And number 3 is, a lot of times during pilot plants, you might have a failure of the filter press or the geotube because your chemicals are not in the right proportions or whatever. What would you do in a situation like that where you would have to dispose of a batch and redo it?
All right. First, yes, we do have a discharge permit, so we can certainly share that. Number 2, the geotubes are actually within scows. So they're within actually a scow that have more volume than the bags themselves. So they're contained within that barge system. So I don't know if that answers your question. So that pretty much is the containment and control for the geotubes. So as they're dewatering, it has more than enough space for the geotube to water. And I think they're only at 85% capacity. They have more than 15+% reserve capacity. So in each one of those cases. With respect to your question, if there's an issue with the treatment train process, if I understood it correctly, the treatment train's set up so that there's two. So they can shift to another, it's dual. If they have any issues where it has to be recycled, that would be reverted back into, we have a Maja tank, which is its primary batching, or before it gets batched, definitely goes there, goes into the treatment system itself. But yeah, there's reserve capacity. That's your question. We built in reserve capacity just to that point. If we needed to treat the water, we have a way to recirculate the water back into the system. Or if one part of the treatment train goes down, we can swap it, just even for maintenance purposes, so that we can, we have carbon filtration as a part of that treatment train. So there's duplicates.
Thanks.
Dan?
Thank you, Mark. Really impressive to see where things are now, relative to where they started. And it's exceptional to see, I know some of the Central Hudson started way back, I don't know, what, 10, 15 years ago with some experimental technologies, and you're still trying to experiment and find new and better technologies here as you're going into this. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank you. My question is, I think probably more for the DEC folks. My recollection, and I don't know if the folks on the line know this, but my recollection is that even going back to the PCBs dredging that GE was under order to do by EPA back, not so long ago, that the advocates had really called for the use of hydraulic dredging and were not, ultimately successful in getting that to be part of the order. And here it's being used here, for this site in Poughkeepsie. So I'm wondering if anyone on the DEC side knows if this is the first use of the hydraulic dredging for an environmental remediation in the Hudson, because it strikes me that it may well be.
This is Doug. I can't say this is the first time I've ever used it for an environmental purpose. And in discussions with other staff, I have not encountered one yet within the state where it has been. This is probably going to be a first for us within the state. Frankly, it has to do, with the water handling aspects of hydraulic dredging versus your standard clamshell. And in previous iterations, we've been successful with maintaining water quality within a project area while using a clamshell. And here we just really have not been able to do that, which is kind of, I feel, has basically opened up the possibility of using hydraulic dredging.
One thing I would share with you, if I could, the contractor that's performing this work is Sevenson. They do have extensive hydraulic dredging experience. So again, they see this certainly, from their perspective, in this depth of water, in this river, that they would tell you is new for them. So, but they've been around for a long time and have done a lot of hydraulic dredge type projects. So, I think we brought the right folks with the technology to demo in this case. So, they have to me, I think they have a great track record.
Thanks.
This is Dan Eaton again. Just to recircle back on what Doug had said. We have done some hydraulic dredging in New York State. I am also not sure if we've ever done it in the Hudson River. And we can, you know, put the question out there and see if anybody has any memories of that or history of that somewhere, specifically relative to the Hudson River. But this won't be the first hydraulic dredge project in New York.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Hey, Mark, this is Gary. I know when we've had all the discussions within the group before, our concern has always been if there is a breach of some kind, and a scene shows up in the water treatment plant in Poughkeepsie or elsewhere, what is the response procedure that you have in place to capture and contain?
Well, a few of the items that I touched on before, I mean, that we do establish that perimeter. We do have the patrol boats. When I say patrol, I mean we're looking for them all the time, Gary. Any sheens that might be within or outside of that perimeter. In the event that they get outside the perimeter, our work stops until they get control. At that point in time, we also have a pretty robust contingency plan that we developed, in concert with the Poughkeepsie Water Treatment Facility, the Dutchess County Health Department, the State Health Department, and DEP. That establishes quick communication that says, again, if we're, for example, in a normal, what I call a green mode, I mean, that's conditions are defined, they're under control, we're working, no issues. If we move to a yellow condition, that means that we have sheeting appearing or something, or even in our monitors that we're monitoring turbidity and pH, we're starting to see something that could be related to the work activity. At that point in time, that's where we're on the phone or on the radio, in this case to Randy. It says, look, we have some things that might be related to the work activities. We're assessing them right now. We're giving you a heads up. If it moves into a red condition, that means we're completely shut down. We're actively trying to mitigate, the source of that, potential relief. And I mean, the notification gets extremely broad. So we've cranked up as far as from a contingency perspective, quite a bit. Making sure that people understand what's going on real time from a monitoring perspective, as well as from the operational perspective. So that there's a lot more direct communication. Not that Randy wants to come around a radio, but it's something that we want to implement just for that reason. So
all right. Yes. All right. Thank you. Because I understood. I did get the real-time monitoring and everything, but it was just if Randy has a scene shows up in his plant, he has to shut down. How is he cleaning up?
How is he cleaning up?
Yeah. I'm more worried about what infiltration into the water treatment plant if it does escape.
Well, if it gets beyond, and Randy, I'll answer for yourself. I mean, certainly trying to head that off, even operationally, that he has the ability to change operations if he needs to. In the event that it makes it all the way up to his treatment facility, and a sheen appears, I mean, to the extent that it is, we've equipped, the water treatment plant right now, got them more boom and all that type of stuff if you needed to do that. But certainly to assist the facility in addressing, whatever might be work activity related. So, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but that's what we would do.
Gary, if we see a sheen, we're going to shut down. We're going to contact Mark and let him know that we have a problem. Mark has assured us that if we have a problem in the plant, that he will shut down. We're going to try to figure out what's going with the tide. See where we can go, maybe pump around the tide. Last time we did have a small contamination in the plant, and by working together, we got through it. So that's what we're going to try to do.
Okay. Well, that was my concern, so thank you. I mean, all right, so we're running over. We're about 11 minutes over right now. We're happy to keep the meeting open for if anybody has any other questions for either Doug or Mark. And if not, or if you have to go, please send them to the chat and we can ask if anybody has to leave. So any other questions? I don't see it. So Doug, Mark, thank you very much. We're looking forward to see how this all plays out, and we're hoping for the best.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Russ. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. And again, this is a very informative meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
You're welcome.
That's okay.